My ex said she just wanted to close some cycles. Well, her cycle ended with a court order. I stepped into the apartment as quietly as I could. The voices were coming from the bedroom. My hand was sweating on the doorknob. I opened it, and what I saw wasn't just betrayal. It was a perfect performance, designed to make me the fool. I'm Tyler, I'm 32, and I dated Elise, who's 28, for 2 years. 6 months ago, she moved into my house, and I emphasize, my house. She never paid rent, never helped with the bills, let alone with groceries. She liked to call the place our home, but the mortgage and the bills told a different story. In the beginning, it didn't bother me that much. She said she was going through a rough patch at work, a patch that, curiously, lasted over a year. That night started off strangely, too calm. I got home from work and she was excited, humming as she set the table. There were lit candles, her favorite pasta, and even a tiramisu from Walmart, the same one she only served on special occasions. For a moment, I thought she had good news, maybe a raise, a new job, something positive after so many weeks of complaining about her boss. We sat down to eat, and with a huge smile, she said, "I have something to tell you." I thought, finally, things were looking up. But then she slid her left hand across the table, showing off a cheap diamond ring I'd never seen before. "I'm engaged," she said, as if she were talking about a vacation. For a few seconds, I just stared at her. I blinked, looked again. I thought it was a joke, I even let out a nervous laugh. "Engaged to who?" I asked, still trying to process it. "To Ryan," she replied, smiling as if she'd won a prize. "We've been seeing each other for a while. I didn't want to tell you until it was official." I sat there, fork in hand, looking at her face and at the ring, feeling my brain freeze like an old computer. When I managed to speak, I asked, "You're engaged to another man while living in my house?" "Yes," she answered with total nonchalance. "Isn't it exciting? I wanted you to be the first to know." I put down my fork, leaned back in my chair, and watched her in silence. "Elise, are you having some kind of mental breakdown?" "No," she said calmly. "I'm in love. Ryan is everything I've ever wanted." "And you're telling me this, why?" I asked. "Because we live together, and obviously things are going to change." "But I thought we could make a transition." "I can stay here for another month or two, until Ryan and I find a place." That's when I realized, she was dead serious. It wasn't a joke. I took a deep breath and, in the same calm tone as hers, replied, "Perfect. Congratulations, really. What great news." Her eyes lit up. "You're okay with this?" she asked excitedly. "Of course," I answered. "There's just one small detail, since you're engaged, you'll pack your things tonight." The smile vanished from her face. "What?" "That's right. You have 2 hours. You can use the big suitcases, consider them a going-away present." "You can't be serious," she stammered. "I am. You just told me you're planning to marry another man while living here." "You're not going to plan your wedding in my kitchen." She crossed her arms, defiant. "That's illegal. I'm a tenant. You have to give me 30 days' notice." "No," I replied, serene. "You're not a tenant, you're a guest. You never paid rent, you're not on any bills, you didn't sign a lease. You lived here for free because I cared about you. That ends today." Then she grabbed her phone and started recording. "This is emotional abuse. I'm documenting it." "Perfect," I replied, taking my own phone out of my pocket. "So am I." And I dialed 911. While I was talking to the operator, she started screaming that I was harassing her. I just sat down and let them hear everything. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived, one older, one younger. They spoke to us separately. I showed my ID, the mortgage, and the bills. The older officer asked her directly, "Ma'am, is it true you just told him you're engaged to another man while living here?" "That's not illegal," she replied. "No," said the officer. But if you're not on the lease and the owner wants you to leave, it's best to do so voluntarily. She insisted. I have rights. The younger officer asked. Do you have a rental agreement or proof of payment? She fell silent. I contribute, she murmured. I showed my banking app, everything in my name. No payments from her. Finally, the officer concluded. You can try to dispute it in civil court, but given the circumstances, it's best to gather your things tonight and avoid legal trouble. The officers stayed while she packed her bags. Me, sitting there, calm. Her, crying fake tears for her phone camera. They're kicking me out of my home just because I fell in love, she said in a shaky, theatrical voice. When she finished packing, she came up to me and said, You're going to regret this, Tyler. I smiled. Probably not as much as you'll regret announcing your engagement over dinner. The officers waited until she left. The older one told me. Change the locks tonight, sir. Already part of the plan, I replied. That same night, new locks, cameras installed, and for the first time in a long time, absolute silence. There were no fake tears or performances for social media, just peace. But that peace didn't last long. At 7:30 in the morning, my phone started ringing non-stop. Over 30 missed calls, dozens of messages, and several DMs from her friends I didn't even know. The first one I opened was from her. You can't just kick someone out because your ego is bruised. I'm already talking to a lawyer. Right after that, I got a call from her mother, Jerusa. In a stern tone, she asked, Tyler, what is this I'm hearing? Did you really throw Elise out? She said you scared her. I didn't even have time to answer, because another message came through, this time from Ryan, the new fiancé. Hey man, what you did wasn't cool. That's something you should have handled privately. I laughed out loud. This guy proposed to my girlfriend while she was still living with me and had the nerve to talk about privacy. I responded directly. You proposed to my girlfriend while she was still living with me, rent-free. Pure class, Ryan. He never replied. About an hour later, the second wave hit, Instagram notifications. Elise had started posting stories as if she were on a PR campaign. One video showed her crying in a forced way, saying, When you finally find love, but your toxic ex tries to control your happiness. I am a survivor of emotional abuse, and I won't be silenced. She tagged me, tagged Ryan, and even some motivational quote page. At first, I thought about ignoring it. But my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Coworkers started sending me screenshots. One of them wrote, Dude, is this your ex? She's going viral over this. That's when I decided to respond, no drama, just facts. I posted. For anyone seeing my ex's stories, here's the reality. She lived in my house without paying rent, without being on any lease, and without taking on a single bill. Last week, she told me she loved me. Yesterday, during dinner in my own home, she announced her engagement to another man and refused to leave. This is what actually happened. I attached screenshots of the I love you text she sent 3 days prior, a money transfer request for a loan, and utility bills, all in my name. And I hit post. The effect was immediate. Within minutes, the comments on her posts filled with people pointing out contradictions. Wait, you were engaged while living with another guy? I thought you said you'd broken up months ago? What a mess. Elise tried to defend herself with generic phrases about healing from narcissists and choosing peace, but the more she wrote, the more she was torn apart in the comments. Meanwhile, I decided to erase every trace of her from my life. By noon, I had made good progress. I opened the fridge and started throwing out her things, half-finished green juices, 5 expired chia pudding pots, and some mysterious pink powder I didn't even know the purpose of. Each item that left felt like hitting a reset button. Around 1 in the afternoon, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I hesitated, but answered. Hi, this is Samantha. It took me a few seconds to recognize the voice. It was Elise's sister. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I stayed silent and let her speak. She told us you two had broken up months ago, that you were just roommates and that she was afraid to leave. And this morning she was crying to Mom saying you ambushed her with the police. She said she announced the engagement while you two were having dinner. Is that true? I asked calmly. She sighed. Yes. I didn't believe it until Mom showed me the picture of the ring. She lied to everyone. I replied. I know. She asked to come get her things, but I can hand them over without her being here. It's all packed already, 2 suitcases in 4 bags. I'll leave them in the garage, you can pick them up after work. She sounded embarrassed. Thank you. And, honestly, I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. She's your sister, it's not your fault. When we hung up, I stood in silence for a few seconds. The last 24 hours felt like a fever dream, only this time, I wasn't the crazy one. That evening, Samantha showed up with an expression of shame that said it all. She barely looked at me. Just came to get the bags. Before leaving, she turned and said, "She's been saying you threatened her." I smiled. Luckily, I had the police here the entire time. Yeah. I think she's in for a reality check, Samantha replied. I had imagined I would feel humiliated. But honestly, I had never felt more in control. The next day, I thought maybe things would finally calm down. I was wrong. When I left for work, I noticed the car wasn't in the garage. It was my car. I bought it 2 years ago, in my name. She only used it because she needed to, and I never objected. Until now. I checked the cameras. She had used a spare key and taken the car at midnight. I tried calling, it went straight to voicemail. I sent a message. You took my car. Return it today. No response. An hour later, I got a text from an unknown number. Elise is keeping the car until she recovers her things. Stop harassing her. It was Ryan. I replied. Her sister already picked everything up. The car isn't hers, it's in my name. This is theft. When I got no response, I printed all the documentation, title, insurance, and registration. I went to the police station and explained that my ex had taken my car without permission. They filed the vehicle as stolen and told me to wait. 3 hours later, I got a call from a different number. Tyler, what the hell did you do? She screamed. What happened? I asked. The police arrested me at Target. They said the car was reported stolen. Of course it was, because it was. You could use it while you lived with me. That ended the moment you announced your engagement at my table, I replied. She lost it. This is insane. They took the car, and I'm at the police station. Perfect, I said. You can take an Uber back. You're cruel, she yelled before hanging up, hurling insults that sounded more like a childish tantrum than a real argument. That afternoon, I retrieved the car and parked it behind the house, double-locked. The next few hours were quiet, until 9 at night. 3 heavy knocks shook the front door. I checked the security camera. It was Ryan accompanied by 2 friends, posing like some bargain bin moving crew. I activated the intercom. Can I help you? I asked. Ryan yelled from outside. We're here to get Elise's furniture. She had already spread the news of our split all over the neighborhood, but what she didn't expect was that by trying to play the victim, she also revealed how dirty her game really was. I opened the door. He puffed out his chest and said with an air of fake authority. You're holding her things hostage like they're yours. I had to hold back a laugh. Seriously, I almost laughed in his face. What things exactly? I asked. The living room set I bought? The top-of-the-line coffee maker I paid for in 12 installments? Or the 65-inch TV she never contributed a cent toward? Every single one of those items was documented with receipts I kept in a meticulously organized folder. If there was one thing they couldn't take from me, it was proof. What are you talking about, Ryan? I said calmly, even though I was boiling inside. Everything here was paid for by me. And I have the receipts. He stared at me, expecting me to back down. You can't just lock her out and keep everything, he repeated, louder this time, trying to intimidate me with his friends behind him. Actually, I can, I replied slowly, emphasizing each word. Because everything is mine. If you want, I can show you the receipts, or, if you prefer, I'll print them out for you to take to your next tantrum. I watched the blood rush to his face. He turned red, his jaw tight, and took a step forward as if trying to intimidate me. I didn't move. You think this is funny, huh? He spat. A little, I replied without losing my calm tone. Just picture it, you, standing at the door of the man whose girlfriend you stole, trying to play the hero. Tell me, who looks ridiculous here? The two friends glanced at each other and started murmuring. One of them even looked away toward the side of the house, as if measuring whether he could slip away unnoticed. That's when I realized there was nothing left to negotiate. I picked up my phone, dialed 911, and put it on speakerphone. Hello, this is Tyler. I have 3 men on my property trying to take things that don't belong to them. And yes, it's all recorded on my security cameras. Ryan immediately raised his voice. We're not stealing anything. We're just here to get her things. The operator, with a professional tone that contrasted sharply with their nervousness, responded. Sir, please maintain your distance. Patrol units are on the way. But no one moved. In fact, one of the friends decided to go all in and started walking around the side of the house. As soon as his hand touched the back door handle, the sensors triggered the floodlights, illuminating him like a thief caught in stadium spotlights. The look on his face was priceless, the exact portrait of someone realizing they've just made a huge mistake in real time. Try that again, and tomorrow you'll be on YouTube. I yelled, loud enough for everyone to hear. The show was set. 2 patrol cars arrived in less than 5 minutes, their red and blue lights reflecting off the front of the house, a scene straight out of a movie. All 3 of them immediately backed off as the officers stepped out with hands on their belts, ready for action. What's going on here? One of the officers asked, scanning the situation with an experienced eye. Ryan, desperate, tried to jump in. He's stealing my fiancé's things. The officer looked at me calmly. Do you have proof that this is your property? I took out my wallet, handed over my ID, the house deed, and the folder with receipts for most of the items. Everything here is mine, I said firmly. They came here without permission and tried to enter through the back. The officer turned to Ryan. Is this true? Ryan tried to mumble something about a misunderstanding, but the second officer looked up and pointed directly at the security camera on the porch. We can review the footage right now, he said dryly. Would you like us to do that? Silence was his only answer. I pulled up the video on my phone. There was his friend, clearly forcing the back door. The officer spoke into his radio and then asked me, Do you wish to press charges for attempted trespassing? Ryan, who had been acting tough just minutes ago, was now pale as paper. Yes, I replied without hesitation. Absolutely. One of his friends was handcuffed on the spot. The other 2 were issued clear summons and warnings. If they came back, it would be straight to jail. Ryan started yelling about lawyers, lawsuits, and rights, but one of the officers cut him off firmly. You can either calm down right now, or leave here with an additional charge for disturbing the peace. He shut his mouth instantly. Before leaving, he tried one last threat. You're going to regret this. Elise is going to sue you for everything. I smiled, unmoved. Perfect. I'll bring popcorn. The patrol car drove off with his friend in cuffs, and I was left alone under the warm glow of the porch light, listening to the sound of engines fading into the darkness. The adrenaline took a while to subside, but when it did, I sat on the steps and opened my laptop. I wrote a detailed report and sent all the videos and documents to my lawyer, making sure no detail was left unchecked. Not even 3 hours had passed when my phone started vibrating. It was a message from a mutual friend. Is it true Ryan tried to break into your house? I replied. Yes. The cameras don't lie. He responded with a single line that made me laugh. Karma runs faster than Wi-Fi. The next morning, the phone rang again. Unknown number. Tyler, said a woman's voice. This is Jerusa, Elisa's mother. Of course it was. Her tone was restrained, but there was a hidden tension between her words. I need to hear your side of what happened, she said. Elise is devastated. She said you humiliated her and called the police for no reason. We can talk, I replied without hesitation. She sounded surprised. You want to meet with me? Yes. And I'll bring proof. We met that same afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. Jerusa was already there when I arrived, sitting upright, rigid, her hands tightly wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. When she saw me enter, she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. No problem, I replied, placing a folder on the table. What's this? She asked. Proof, I answered, opening the folder and spreading receipts, bank statements, and screenshots of messages from Elise asking for money, sending hearts, and saying I love you just 4 days before announcing her engagement to Ryan. As she flipped through the papers, her face grew increasingly tense. She told us you two were already broken up, she murmured, almost to herself. Oh, of course, I retorted. That's why she was still sleeping here, using my car, and eating from my pantry. Jerusa swallowed hard. She also said you were emotionally abusive, she added in a lower tone. Ask the police officers who came that night, I replied calmly. She admitted it herself, in front of them, that she was engaged to another man while still living with me. There was a long silence. Then Jerusa sighed and dropped the papers on the table. I knew she was lying about something, she confessed. It's always been like this. Since she was a teenager, at 16, she'd date 2 boys at once and tell them the other was her cousin. We punished her, but her father always gave in. We both gave in, actually. We made her believe she could twist reality however she wanted and that the rest of the world would just adapt. I stayed silent. There was no need to say anything. She was opening a door she'd kept locked for years. Then Jerusa took an envelope from her purse and slid it toward me. This is from her father and me. $5,000. It doesn't cover everything you lost, but consider it an apology. I looked at the envelope without touching it. You don't have to do this, I murmured. Yes, we do, she replied firmly. We're the ones who raised her this way. We allowed her to believe the world revolved around her. It's our responsibility. I calmly picked up the envelope and placed it under the folder. Thank you. A slight relief softened her expression. Then, she lowered her voice. Between us. Ryan is already starting to have doubts. Yesterday, he came to our house, yelling, because she emptied his bank account. It seems he only realized she had nowhere to live when she called from the police station about the car. I couldn't help but smile. So he's finally realizing who he got involved with. She's a tornado, Jerusa admitted. She's glued to Instagram, doesn't look for a job, and expects everything to fall into her lap. She took a sip of her coffee and looked me straight in the eye. You're too calm for everything that's happened. I'm tired of the circus, I replied honestly. I just want peace, and my car back. That drew a soft, genuine laugh from her, the first and only one of the entire conversation. For the first time, Jerusa's voice sounded different, as if she had finally stepped out of denial and begun to see her daughter for who she truly was. You remind me of my husband, she said. You're furious with Elise, but you're trying to handle it quietly, without a spectacle. Maybe seeing her face reality head-on is the only way to wake her up for good. Maybe, I replied calmly. Or maybe she'll find another man to pay for everything before that happens. She lowered her eyes and murmured, almost as if talking to herself. She doesn't realize she's destroying herself. And when she does realize, I added, she'll blame the whole world, except herself. Jerusa nodded silently. Then she picked up her purse and stood up. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Tyler. You didn't deserve to go through this, she said sincerely. No one does, I replied, standing up as well. She stood still for a moment, as if hesitating to say more, and finally rested a hand gently on my arm. If you ever want to show her she can't use people anymore, don't argue with her, she whispered. Just be successful. It's the only thing she won't be able to stand. I smiled, because, without needing to say it, I was already doing exactly that. When Jerusha left, I stayed seated for a few minutes, staring at the folder she'd left on the table. I didn't need that money. That wasn't what mattered. The value was in the gesture, the acknowledgement. Someone from her own family had finally opened their eyes. And for the first time since this whole disaster began, I felt real peace, a serene satisfaction. It wasn't revenge. It was validation. A silent confirmation that I wasn't crazy for setting boundaries. Elise had manipulated everyone for years, but now, one by one, they were waking up. And the best part, I didn't have to do a thing. 3 weeks passed in almost unreal silence. No yelling, no absurd arguments in the middle of the night, no unexpected knocks at the door. I was already getting used to that peace until, one Thursday morning, the phone rang again. It was Samantha. I hesitated for a few seconds before answering. The last time she'd called, it was to apologize. This time, her voice sounded exhausted. Tyler, she's living with me now, she said bluntly. And I'm losing my mind. I couldn't hold back a laugh. What happened to the great love story with Ryan? I asked. He still comes around sometimes, she sighed. But she doesn't leave the couch. I come home from work and find her in her pajamas, talking to her followers about her healing journey. Every day, she repeats that she's rebuilding after some supposed narcissistic abuse. She really says that? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Samantha let out a long, heavy sigh. She literally filmed herself crying because, according to her, I don't support her personal growth. Meanwhile, I'm paying for her food, and she doesn't even look for a job. I leaned back in my chair. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yesterday she said Ryan is having financial problems and can't help her anymore, Samantha continued. Which, in reality, means he stopped sending her money. Good for him, I replied. Seems like reality is finally catching up to her. Samantha was silent for a moment, then said in a lower tone. Tyler, she's talking about suing you again. She said she's been reading up on tenant laws. I told her to stop wasting her time, but she keeps saying you ruined her life. She can try if she wants, I said firmly. I have all the proof she needs to lose. 2 days later, I found out she wasn't bluffing. My lawyer called me while I was at work. You're going to love this one, he said sarcastically. You've just been officially served. What did she do now? I asked. She filed a lawsuit for emotional distress, illegal eviction, and loss of property. She's asking for $50,000. I burst out laughing. $50,000 for announcing her own engagement while living in my house rent-free? Don't worry, my lawyer replied. We'll handle it. I'm preparing a counterclaim for the months she lived there without contributing, for unpaid services and property damage. We'll ask for $28,000, just to make it sting. Perfect, I said. Bill me for whatever it takes. A week later, we were in court. Elise showed up in a suit, fake crying even before the hearing began. She didn't have a private lawyer, just a public defender who looked like he'd met her 5 minutes before the session. When it was her turn to speak, she launched into a dramatic monologue, full of phrases about psychological warfare, coercive control, and how I supposedly used the police as an emotional weapon. The judge's face remained impassive. Then it was my lawyer's turn. He stood up, handed a thick folder to the judge, and spoke calmly. Exhibit A, evidence that the plaintiff never contributed financially and publicly announced her engagement to another man while still residing in the defendant's home. Exhibit B, police reports confirming her voluntary departure from the residence. Exhibit C, Instagram posts where the plaintiff herself admits leaving by choice, celebrating the engagement, and thanking the fiancé for being by her side. The judge flipped through the documents, sighed, and looked at her coldly. Ms. Elise, this does not appear to be an eviction case. In fact, it seems you were living in someone else's home for free. She tried to interrupt. But I have trauma. This is a civil court, not a therapy session, the judge retorted, raising his hand. 5 minutes later, the case was dismissed. Her lawsuit was thrown out. And our counterclaim was officially on record. Her lawyer couldn't wait to bolt out of the room. That same afternoon, Elise started posting on social media, claiming the justice system was corrupt and that money always wins. But, curiously, she didn't mention that her own lawyer had dropped her as a client. I didn't feel anger. I felt admiration for her ability to keep digging her own grave. A week later, my lawyer called again. Guess where she's living now, he said, sounding amused. Let me guess, with her parents? And not with Ryan, of course. At least temporarily, he replied. She used their address on one of the legal documents. I nearly spat out my coffee. After everything that happened? I asked. He laughed. Apparently, yes. He took her back. I stared into space, shaking my head. Some people just never learn. That same night, I got a message from Samantha. She left in the middle of the night, didn't even say goodbye. Mom's had enough. She's back with Ryan. But it's chaos. I replied with a single sentence. She's not my problem anymore. And truly, she wasn't. A month later, I had almost stopped thinking about her until Samantha sent one last update. Ryan is sleeping on a friend's couch, she wrote. She calls non-stop, saying he abandoned her again. When I read the next message, she's now seriously thinking about starting an OnlyFans account. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, as if my brain needed to process the absurd comedy of it all before reacting. Then, without being able to help it, I let out a low, quiet laugh. One of those dry chuckles, more relief than mockery. She's not my problem anymore, I whispered aloud, savoring each word. And for the first time in months, I said it with absolute conviction. My life had returned to the balance I thought I'd lost. The house stayed in order, no piles of clothes thrown around, no stupid arguments, no drama. Work was going well. My schedule was clear. My routine was mine again. Even the little things, drinking coffee in silence, watching a show uninterrupted, had regained their value. No shouting. No dramatic crying. No calls at absurd hours. Just peace. But peace doesn't always last. On a random Tuesday, one of those that seemed harmless, my phone started ringing. Unknown number. For a few seconds, I hesitated to answer. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail. But something in my gut made me slide my finger and say, "Hello? Tyler." The voice on the other end sounded tense, nervous. "Who's speaking?" I asked, suspicious. "It's Ryan." Just hearing that name made me smile ironically. "Well, if it isn't the star fiancé," I replied calmly. "To what do I owe the honor?" Ryan took a deep breath before unloading everything at once. "Please, I need your help. I don't know what to do." I leaned back in my chair, both curious and amused. It's not every day that the guy who once showed up at my door screaming for furniture I bought calls asking for advice. "Okay, go ahead," I said. "Elise won't leave," he said, almost breathless. "It's been 2 weeks, she doesn't pay for anything. And now she's threatening to call the police and claim I assaulted her if I try to make her leave." I rested my head against the chair, trying to hold back a laugh. "You're kidding, right?" "I wish I was," he replied, his voice shaky. "She says I owe her emotional stability. I've been sleeping on the couch so I don't have to share the bedroom with her." "Well, you're the one who proposed to her, remember?" I reminded him matter-of-factly. "That was before I found out who she really was," he replied, desperate. "She lies about everything. I don't know how to get her out of here, Tyler. Please, tell me how you did it." The irony was delicious. The same man who once defended Elise by screaming at me was now asking for help to get rid of her. Listen, I said in a more serious tone, from now on, record everything. Audio, video, messages, whatever it takes. Don't argue with her, don't touch any of her things, and keep your phone close. If she threatens to call the police, you call them first. The one who calls first usually has the legal advantage. Silence. I could imagine his expression on the other end, confused, scared. That makes sense, he finally said. And one more thing, never commit to a woman who's still living with another man. He didn't even try to argue. You're right, he murmured, defeated. I'm sorry. I really underestimated all of this. I replied with a simple and hung up. I thought that would be the end of the chapter. But 2 days later, Samantha called me with that tone she uses when something big is about to drop. You won't believe what your favorite person just pulled, she said, a mix of exasperation and incredulous laughter in her voice. Let me guess, another absurd accusation? I replied. Worse. She told Ryan she's pregnant. I felt my blood run cold for a moment. No way, I said slowly. Yep. According to her, she took a test and everything. Ryan panicked and said he'll step up. But his roommates didn't believe it for a second. Samantha continued, laughing between exhaustion and disbelief. They found out she was recorded talking to a mutual friend. In the video, Elise laughs and literally says, "It's so easy to manipulate him." Men panic as soon as they hear the word baby. She said that? On tape? I asked, disbelieving. Crystal clear. And when her friend asked what she'd do if she actually got pregnant, she said, "Please, I'm not going to ruin my body for him." I laughed. Not for free, but at the surrealism of the situation. Ryan's roommate sent him the video, Samantha continued. When he confronted her, she fell apart. Screaming, tears, saying it was all just a misunderstood joke. Let me guess, I interrupted. She threatened to call the police. Exactly. But this time, he got ahead of it. He called first, explained that she refused to leave and that she was lying. The police showed up that same night. Elise made a huge scene but ended up leaving. Though, of course, not before going live on social media, saying she was fleeing an abusive environment for the second time this year. Then, as usual, she called her mom crying. Guess where she is now? Samantha asked. At her parents' house, I replied without hesitation. Bingo! Her dad is furious, her mom exhausted. They gave her 2 weeks to find a job, but I doubt she'll last that long. Ryan, humiliated. His roommates hate him for bringing her there. They almost lost their lease because she screamed day and night. I couldn't help another laugh. Karma doesn't forgive. You'd think she'd learn, right? Samantha said. She won't, I replied. People like her don't reflect. They just look for the next victim. Mom's talking to her about therapy again, Samantha added. Said maybe this time, she'll actually have to face herself. I don't believe a word of it, I said, laughing. But, hopefully. Ryan disappeared from social media. No photos, no posts. The recorded video started circulating among mutual friends like wildfire. Within days, everyone knew the story. Elise faking a pregnancy to trap her fiancé. The rumors spread fast. They even made a meme calling her the two-legged love scammer. I didn't comment on anything. I just sat on the porch with a hot cup of coffee, silently watching the feed from my security cameras. For the first time, she couldn't control the narrative. That night, Samantha sent one last message. She's out of cards, out of a job, out of a boyfriend, out of a car. All she has left is the guest room in her mom's house. And so, Elise ended up exactly where she belonged, right back where she started. With no one to manipulate, no one to blame. Me? I slept that night with a peace I hadn't felt in years. 3 months later, my life was stable, calm, quiet. And her? She was still repeating her own cycle, but this time, without me in the middle. I had started seeing someone new, Yasmin. And for the first time in a long time, a relationship didn't feel like a battle to educate an adult who refused to grow up. Yasmin had her own house, her own job, her own car, her own life. She didn't depend on me for anything. When we went out, she even argued with me about paying the bill, something that, though surprising at first, was refreshing. We'd been together a few months when, little by little, problems started to resurface. But not from her. One Saturday night, I got a message from a neighbor. "Hey, someone's been sitting in front of your house for about 20 minutes. I think it's your ex." I went straight to the security cameras. And there she was, Elise, in an old sedan, staring at her phone as if waiting for something. I didn't go out. I wasn't going to give her the reaction she clearly wanted. But the next day, she came back. And this time, she didn't stay in the car. It was Saturday night. Yasmin and I were on the couch watching a movie when a sharp knock echoed at the door. 3 heavy knocks. Then 5 more. Yasmin looked at me, frowning. "Are you expecting someone?" I shook my head and opened the camera app. And there she was, Elise. Disheveled, face flushed, eyes wide. I sighed. "Guess who's back?" I murmured. I stepped outside with my phone recording. "Tyler," she screamed, her voice breaking. "You're trash. You cheated on me." I almost laughed. "I cheated on you? You got engaged to another man while living in my house." "That's different," she yelled, agitated. "We hadn't really broken up. You're the one who forgot about me too fast." "Everyone says so." "Who's everyone, Elise? Ryan? The same guy who filed a police report against you?" Her face twisted with rage. "You're parading that woman around to hurt me?" "Her name is Yasmin," I replied calmly. "And it works, because she isn't you." She trembled with hate. "You think you can just replace me? You'll regret this. I'll expose you for who you are, a liar, a cheater." "Elise," I interrupted coldly, "the only thing I cheated on was my own stupidity. And I don't plan on relapsing." Before she could respond, Yasmin appeared behind me. "Everything okay out here?" she asked calmly. Elisa's expression changed instantly, twisting into bitterness. "Look at that, the homewrecker," she spat. "Excuse me?" Yasmin said, still serene. "You stole my man. You ruined my life." When she took a step forward, I stepped between them. "Step back. Now." Elise tried to shove me and started screaming uncontrollably. That was enough. I picked up my phone and said firmly, "I need patrol units at my address. My ex is trespassing and attempting to assault my partner." Her expression changed instantly. "You're calling the police again?" Third time's the charm. In less than 10 minutes, 2 patrol cars arrived. Different faces, but the same tired looks I'd come to recognize. The older officer approached. "Ma'am, what's going on here tonight?" "She attacked me," Elise screamed, pointing at Yasmin. One of the officers looked at me, and I showed him the video recorded by my doorbell camera. On the screen, you could clearly see Elise screaming, shoving, and trying to get closer to Yasmin. The older officer rubbed his temples with a weary sigh. "Ma'am, we've warned you before. This is harassment. Step away from this property." She began fake crying. "I just wanted to close some cycles." "Closing cycles doesn't include trespassing or assaulting anyone," the officer replied firmly. "You're lucky you're not leaving here in handcuffs. You'll be served a citation for harassment. One more incident, and you will be arrested." In seconds, she went from whimpering to screaming. "This is corruption. He manipulates everyone." The officers escorted her down the sidewalk as she kept yelling about lies and fake love, as if she were in a bad reality TV episode. When they finally left with the citation in hand, Yasmin looked at me, shaken. "That's who she is," I explained. Now you understand why I have cameras all over the house. The next morning, I went to court. My lawyer had already submitted the police reports, videos, and record of Elise's unauthorized visits. The judge didn't even look up before signing the temporary restraining order. Given her history, it went into effect immediately. The order specified that she couldn't come near me, contact me, or mention me on social media for 60 days. Perfect, I thought. That same night, Samantha texted me. Heard what happened. Mom said the police warned her that if she does it again, she's going to jail. Maybe this will finally wake her up. Doubt it, I replied. But at least it's all documented now. A week later, Elise's social media simply vanished. No vague posts, no inspirational quotes, no drama. I heard she was mandated to attend therapy as part of the citation conditions. Ryan had completely disappeared from her life, and her own parents demanded she start paying rent if she wanted to keep living there. Meanwhile, Yasmin and I kept building something real. We laughed over silly things, made plans, had light-hearted arguments about whose turn it was to do the dishes. It was a calm, healthy everyday peace, the kind I didn't know still existed. One night, while we were watching a show, she asked me, "Do you ever still think about her?" I smiled. Only when the doorbell rings without warning. Yasmin laughed, rested her head on my shoulder, and that was the end of the conversation. Over time, I understood that Elise was never looking for love. She wanted control, comfort, and attention. When she lost all three, she simply faded away. Today, my house is at peace. My bills are in order. And my peace of mind no longer depends on someone else avoiding a meltdown on my doorstep. One day, she told me, "You're going to regret losing me." But the truth is, my only regret is not walking away sooner. And this time, the door is locked from the inside and by the law.
Reddit Relics comment. Looks like the universe finally installed the premium version of Instant Karma. Elise wanted to play the role of professional victim, but forgot to read the terms of service. When drama turns into a police report, the ending doesn't have credits, it has handcuffs.